Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in to second episode of Samosa Chai with .NET. And I'm Vivek Sridhar, and I'm senior cloud advocate, cloud and AI engineering team. I have Nish with me. Hey, Nish, how are you? Go
Hey
ahead and
Vivek.
introduce yourself, by the way, and also talk about how was your week. I know it was very busy week. Just go ahead, Nish.
Yeah, so my name is Nish. I work on the community team, and we work on a lot of amazing things in .NET. And I specifically work on the .NET architecture. So if you see .NET/architecture, there's a lot of amazing things like microservices guidances, cloud native apps, and migrating your .NET applications to the most modern frameworks. The .NET Core and things like that. So yeah. So that's me. And yeah, as you rightly said, I had a very busy week last week because we had really amazing set of announcements and releases that we were so proud of, which is the .NET 6. And we also had the .NET Conf, which is really a large event with almost a lot of community people doing some really great talks among the other, obviously, the Microsoft folks who did some really nice sessions as well. So yeah, it was a busy week, Vivek. And how was your week?
It's been an interesting one because I did unpacking of Ignite last week
Hmm.
with 10 plus community leaders. And
Yeah,
today we are unpacking .NET Conf announcements as well. So it's
yeah,
been an amazing week for the tech community because there's so many things which has come in and upskilling with all of these things from last 2 weeks has been a really amazing thing which is happening for me too. So Nish, how was um, how was your .NET .NET Conf experience? In fact, what are those announcements which were really interesting for you? And
yeah,
I did had a chance to go through the keynote, myself, and I know I'm being the newbie in the
yeah,
.NET, and
yeah.
from the last episode, which where I just started with .NET, and you did a
Hmm.
amazing job of teaching me what is .NET and how to get started with it. I've just downloaded the .NET, and I've just started with .NET 6. So that's been me. And if you can give me you know overview of the especially the unified platform
Mm.
which was launched. We did talk about it in the last session
Yeah.
as well, but for the audience who have joined today, if you can just give them an overview of it and what it is and other things, it will be amazing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's my life's mission to teach you .NET. So I'm very excited to join you and talk about .NET. And I mean, the entire session today is going to be all about unwrapping all the amazingness that we actually put together for .NET Conf and then the .NET 6 release itself. So we'll go through each of it, and again, Vivek is a new. We want to keep to something really simple and start from there. But you can always ask your questions in the YouTube chat, and we will be happy to take that up. And this is more like, we want to do it more like a podcast or a casual chat. That's why the name itself is Samosa Chai. So we don't want to get anywhere really serious on things. And by the way, that's a nice wallpaper that you have there, Vivek. Is that something which is available on Teams that I can use it?
No,
Because
it's not it's not a wallpaper. I'm at Microsoft Reactor Office, not Microsoft Office,
wow.
and at Microsoft Reactor. So I'm back to Office.
Oh,
After
nice.
1.5
So,
years, yeah, it's I'm pretty excited to being back here today and meeting some of the friends out there. And this whole reactor looks amazing.
yeah, it
I'm
looks.
super excited to get started with in-person events. I don't know when we're going to do it, but it's amazing to be back here.
Yeah, yeah. Finally, it's good to see someone in the office and from this side of the world, by the way, and then chat. Um, Very nice. So, Vivek, do you want to go through the code of conduct first so that we can
Yes.
then, I think we can go through the.
Oh, completely forgot about that. So
Mhm.
it's most important thing for us to get started. We just spend some time, a minute, on the code of conduct, so that you don't be friendly with the audience who are there. This session is friendlier for everyone. So spend a minute on this code of conduct. Let's give it a minute, Nish, for people to go through this,
Yeah,
and then we can get started with your unified platform discussion as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in simple terms, just be nice to people, just be nice all around. We want to be a very good community in encouraging youngsters and all sort of everyone into this whole chat, and we want to keep it casual, and we want to take all your questions, and we want to be very really nice in terms of a community, right? All right, let's talk about .NET, and this whole idea is talking about the recapping. So, considering that we are going it in a casual way and we go slow, we'll take questions and things. There could be chances that it can get a little extended, but don't worry, because we still have some sessions that are lined up in the coming weeks, which will actually cover things in detail, which we'll talk about in a bit. Okay, so Vivek, you've been talking to me about the unified platform. So this is .NET 6. I mean, it's a great time to be a .NET developer. To be honest with you, I've been building on .NET, like building on the .NET platform, like building apps, websites, and things like that since 2004, I guess 2003, 2004, sometime when I was a college kid, doing my projects and things like that. To now, and it's earlier it was like, you probably would have heard about the .NET framework, which was mostly to build applications on Windows platforms. I think over the years we have changed the courses, and now you can build anything on the planet, anything which has a CPU. You can actually build it using .NET. So you it's technically with .NET 6, that unification of having that .NET Core, that there was Xamarin platform, which targeted the iOS, Android, and places like that, Mac OS and Catalyst, Mac OS Catalyst, and things like that. So it's all now a unified platform. So you can always share code between all these platforms, as long as they are just non-platform codes you can share across, and yet you can use the same tooling, and also the the SDKs, the libraries, to build specific for platforms. Like, say, if you're building web applications, then you can build your web applications and desktop applications, gaming, IoT, AI, and if you really look at this, it's really an entire ecosystem out there with there's some great packaging, packages that you can use in your .NET. And Vivek, I think we spoke about this last as well. If you're using Node, you would use something like an npm for your packages. In .NET, it's more like NuGet, and the IDs. If you look at, there's VS Code, Visual Studio for Mac, CLI, and technically, like, you come with your tool set, and you will be empowered to build your apps. And the whole idea is you want to be focused on what you want to build, instead of spending more time in figuring out how to go about building it, right? So yeah. And also languages, you can use C Sharp, VB, or F Sharp. You can technically use any of that, and then still build applications on everywhere, right? So Vivek, I want to briefly speak about the ecosystem as well. So if you look at, we're looking at the ecosystem. There's amazing growth. 5.4 million .NET developers among the Visual Studio family of where we kind of like see how developers are using these products. And also, if you look at the Stack Overflow, it has been the number one most loved framework for almost 3 years now. And with .NET 5 and .NET 6, it's just getting better and better. And it's also if you're like me, like you have used .NET in the past and now you're coming in, I think one thing to realize is that it is now open source project. It is cross-platform. It is an open source project, and if you look at it is among the top 30 open source projects out there. So with .NET 6, what we see is there were about 21,000 contributions from 6,900 members just for the .NET 6, including all the issues and PRs and things like that, which people have interacted and made it better for all of us, right? So yeah, it's a great ecosystem. If you are new here, this is an amazing
Yeah, that's
place to start.
amazing to see so many contributors there. I mean, like,
Hmm.
it's a huge, huge number,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
good,
It's a
good
huge number.
for everyone.
Exactly. Thank you so much,
Thank you very
everyone
much.
who are on the .NET platform. Yes, thank you so much. And talking about numbers, here's another big number about benchmarking. Like, Tech Empower is a third party which benchmarks on all the frameworks out there, and per them, you can see that the .NET runs at 7 million requests per second, technically faster than every other web frameworks out there. Well, how does this all transform into? It all transforms into, when you're building applications where you're trying to reach the next billion the customers and things like that. You would need this kind of performances to scale up and to save cost in the cloud. So you can see one of the things in Entity Framework Core is one of our packages where we saw from .NET 5 to .NET 6 there were about 92% increase in the requests per second performance, right? So it's really great for everyone there.
So
Okay.
when you talk
Mhm.
about the building of these applications, that one of the thing which hit me is in the keynote I saw the minimal API, and we did talk about it last time as well. But
Yep.
the most important thing was how how you can minimize the code into a small,
Yep.
and then into 3 lines
Mm.
of code, into 4 lines of code when you build something, an
Yep.
API and other things. So that is the optimization, and that's the one which is such an important for the developers, right? So Nish, can you just walk us through the
Yep.
that the simply minimal API, which was part of the simplified environment, which was launched in the .NET Conf?
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the main focuses for us for a couple of last releases were to keep .NET more simplified for a lot of people who are coming in for the first time. If you are like me, you have started .NET you've been working on .NET from a really long time. You know that there were always incremental path towards building things, and there would be some point where you want to have those kind of complexity because you're building really large applications and you need that flexibility in unit testing and things like that. But at the same time, what happens is, like, when we made cross-platform and we were looking at the all sorts of developer who are used to the other ecosystem to kind of like embrace .NET when it comes to performances and things like that, they found this lot of ceremony being really really hard for them to understand, right? So I think what we did is we focused on making it simplified for getting started. So if you were to just start on a notepad and just use a .NET compiler, you would just be able to write the entire application up, right? Before, it was not the case for a few years before that, so it's there. So basically, what we did is there are some really nice APIs out there, which makes it easier for building web applications and things like that. As well as there were some under the hood, there are some really some really good improvements in the C# language itself, where these top level statements and things like that came in, and it makes it easier for writing the code in that more simplified fashion, which is what we will also look at it in the demo today, right? And one other thing is, like, if you were looking for the Apple Silicon, the latest ARM64 support, that's also now baked in, so you will be able to write apps on that as well. Yeah. Cool. So .NET 6 is released. So go download it today, and if you haven't already. And also, one more thing we announced last week was the launch of Visual Studio 2022. And we, as a developer division, we're focused on improving developer productivity. So what you see now is, like, with hot reload, live share, and all the amazing things that has been now baked in, and 64-bit support for sure. It is now a high performing IDE, and but we also have a free edition, like community edition, that you can use for your personal projects and things like that too. So whether you are a if you are a person who's building up personal projects, or an enterprise looking for developer productivity, this is one of the greatest IDs out there, which is going to keep you productive from day one. So yeah, so check that out as well. Like and I'll show you some of the demos in VS 22 today, so you'll see how it performs and things like that too. Okay. We also announced the upgrade assistant. I mean, upgrade assistant has been there from since the last release, but it's what we now have is the support for .NET 6. So now you will, if you were coming from the .NET framework, um, so you may be having some Windows applications, and you may have some projects which are really old, and you want to do, you want to modernize it. Then you have an upgrade assistant which gives you step-by-step process of going through that journey. And most of the code can be reused, but there could be situations where their platform specific codes, the way it was written would be different. So these tooling will help you to a point where you know where exactly you need to go and fix, and helping you a lot of developers out there who want to modernize the application, make use of the cloud native technologies and things like that. So we also have some great guidances on all these things, which I partially work on this as well, which is available on .net/architecture there.
So basically, I can take the old code and use the
Mhm.
upgrade assistant. So I just need to run something, and it will give me a report or something
Yeah.
to go back and make those changes.
Yeah, it's more like the tooling to give you the step by step that you need. You can look at it from your code, and then what can be changed. If we build a tool like take X and make it to Y, it will be very difficult, because we've seen developers writing code in different fashions, and it's almost not, even if we build a tool that would be, which we think is 100%, it can shift from the framework to core. It would be really hard, because of different kind of projects there. So what this tool is, intelligently it will talk about areas that you can change and improve, which you can manually go and update and things like that.
Great.
Okay, so so what I want to talk about today, Vivek, is let's get started now that we have this, um, you know, putting everyone on the same page, like the .NET releases and .NET advantages that you have. We can talk about now writing some code, right? Are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So do we have any questions so far? Okay, I don't see it any now.
No questions as of now.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let me increase the fonts. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a Windows terminal, and I will start with Ubuntu. So I'm using a WSL. So I'll start the Ubuntu, and then we will start writing the .NET application from on that one. So before that, on my Windows, let's say what is my version of .NET. So now I have here 6.0.100, which is the latest .NET 6. In Ubuntu, what I have here, let's see.
Nish, can
Uh,
you just increase the font so
let's
that we
go
can
full
see?
screen on this.
Yep.
Fine.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Now it's
It's going to
amazing.
be really, really difficult for me to type, but I'll try. So if I type .NET version here, so this is running on Ubuntu, and it's 5.0. So if you put a info to this, you can see that it's running on Ubuntu. It's a platform as Linux, and the only SDK that I've installed here is 5.0.402, right? So before that, let me just go to the right directory so that I can access this on Windows as well. So now I am in the source folder. I think I created a directory called .NET Conf. Let's make sure I type that correctly. Okay, okay, that's an empty folder. So let me just clear this. I can use Control L to clear it. And see this, there's nothing in this. So we're going to create a new .NET project here. Now to get started, you can do a .NET new. And you see that, there's, because the fonts are really high, you may not be able to see this. So there's like really a lot of projects out there that you can get started with. But if you go to the .NET 6 and just say .NET new, you'll see technically there are only very few that is listed here. And the thought of minimal started here, so that you're not overwhelmed with all the things that you can do with .NET, even though we keep telling everyone that you can do a lot of things in .NET. But at the time of starting, you don't need that. And if you really need it, you can always say .NET new, and then put hyphen hyphen and say list, and then you will get those list of all the .NET projects, right? So sorry about
Okay.
this looking so weird on this one, but yeah, I can just
Maybe you can
sort of
reduce a little bit. Oh, that's a very small. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe this one
that
is
yeah,
fine.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can get literally okay. So let's clear this.
So basically, the previously we were able to list everything when you just say new, and right now we have minimalized a couple of things in .NET
Mhm.
6,
Yeah.
but you can still list it if you do the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So what? Yeah, I think what we do in terms of tooling support is that we also provide a great templating to get started. So sometimes you can just technically start with a simple CS file and then build on top of it, adding right packages for the right job. But these templates give you a great start. Like if you're building a web application, it has all the necessary DLLs and things like that to kind of have a web server included in your projects, which will open up and then take HTTP requests. So if you're working console application, then it'll wire up a few things for your terminals. If you're writing a Windows application, it'll wire up important things for your Windows SDKs and things like that, right? So it does a lot of nice things. So these are nothing but templates. So I was just showing you that the minimal just starts there. So all right, so let's create a new project. So we'll create a console project. So I'll say .NET new, and I'll say my console application. That's what I need. So .NET new console, and then I also provide an output directory, and then we'll call this as Samosa console. I hope I'm writing that spelling right. So
Yep.
what I did is I just created a new project here, right? So it just goes and creates this thing. So if I just do an ls, so it has this folder that I created, and then let's clear this. I'll remember. I just noticed that we have this samosa chai banner on this thing, so it can come in the way if it's going down. So just please remind me to pull this up if I forget to. Right.
We just need to finish off those samosas. We need to eat those samosas.
We need to eat them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that tea never gets cold, and right, always have that
Yeah.
wavy, smoky stuff there. All
Yeah.
right, so so let me do a .NET run on this. What this technically does is it goes and builds it. The reason why it's taking a little time is because it goes and builds it on the Ubuntu platform, and then it has the necessary instructions for running in Linux, right? So it just goes and says create hello world, right? So we can open this instead of opening this here. What I'll do is I'll open it here in Visual Studio. So I want to work on the Visual Studio. So it is the same file system. So I would have had Samosa Chai here. So Samosa, yeah, sorry. So if I do an ls, so I think I have these things here, and it's so difficult to show you here. So I'll open the Explorer. So here we go. Okay. So basically, this is the things that I was talking about. You see this bin and obj project folders. So what it did is, like, when you compile it, it just goes and puts, so it compiled for net5.0, and then it puts in, because we were working on debug, it has a few DLLs and also the PDB files to go and debug the files, right? So, and the OBJ is again another thing. These two things can be actually deleted. You don't need it. All that you need is these two files to run the .NET. So I'm going to open the CS project directly, so which is going to open in my Visual Studio, which opened on the other screen, which I'm going to bring it to the screen, let's say, right? Okay, so now if you go into the program.cs, you see that this has a lot of lines of code just to write hello world, right? So you have a classic thing, like if you're working from other languages, you will see a main method, which is an entry point to your application, and then there's a console.write line, right? So now I can actually go and delete these things completely, and I can pull it up, and I can just build this. Now when I'm building it, it is actually, you can see that it's actually, let's say it's build succeeded. So now it's actually building in Windows. So it'll have Windows instructions now because it's a cross-platform code. And you see that, now when I did it, it just worked. Like, we just got rid of all these things. So these are top-level statements, which was there in C#9. So if you haven't tried this out, you should have tried this already. And now with .NET New, if I was creating .NET New console in .NET 6, I would have already got something like this, right? So let's make it in .NET 6. We did even we thought we could do better, right? So what we did is, if you open the CS project, so this is still targeting .NET 5.0. So I can say I want to target 6.0. Now with 6.0, there is a new thing that you can use, something called implicit usings, right? So if I enable this, what I can do is I can go to the program.cs, and I can even remove system.cs, using system.thing, right? So now, so all the using that you would generally have. So for example, if I want to use system.threading, right? I have to use using. Okay, let's write a code with system.threading. So let's say I want to write a while loop, and I will remove this here, and I'll say while true. Ideally, if you were not having implicit usings, then I would not be able to do this thread.sleep until I add the namespace, yeah, system.threading. So now, because we said it's implicit, that means you will have these namespaces for you by default. You can now go and say thread.sleep and then run this application, and with no issues, you should be able to run this. See that? So we made
So,
C
so,
sharp.
so
Mhm.
what other things will be covered in that implicit using? Like, is it
Yeah,
couple of namespaces? Uh,
yeah, exactly. So all the namespaces that you would generally use from the libraries that from the libraries that you will use from our side, like in terms of ASP.NET, if you're using ASP.NET libraries, then all those things will be part of those implicit usings, right? You can also do that. For example, let's say if you have a namespace that's something called as using, you have something called as using Samosa Chai that you would want to use, right? And if you want to like inherit something like get some other things, you can actually move this to something called as global. So you can just say global something like this. Then this whole namespace will be available to you in the entire project, and you can move this to a global using CS or some other class file, and now you don't have to call the namespaces every single time.
So,
So
Nish,
mhm,
there is one question from the
yeah.
audience. Just because we are talking about the implicit use, the question is on that. So it's more about, does it work on all the platforms?
Yeah, at the moment, I think it's on all the platforms. I don't recall any particular platform saying not there or not available yet, but I need to cross check on that. But I think it should be available on all platforms. It's all baked in features, so it should be fine.
Thanks, Anu, for the question.
Thanks,
Yep.
Sanopia. Great. Keep those questions coming in. We will take up those questions. All right. So so now let's go and create a web API. Are you ready? I think you saw some web API code last time, or that we created. But this time we will write something. And we'll see, let's see what exactly when I say add new project here, right? What exactly does it give me, right? So if I so just like when I did .NET New, there was options like Web API and all those things. In Visual Studio, you have this nice visual way of looking at it. Like there's colors and icons, beautiful ones. So here I can go and say I want to build web API if I type it correctly, and you will see that ASP.NET Core Web API, right? So ASP.NET, if you're new to this platform, ASP.NET is nothing but that's the web platform that is on top of .NET, built on top of .NET, that will do all those things that you need for building a web application, right? So right now I am in the Samosa console, so I'll just call this as Samosa Web API, maybe just to keep the naming done right. So I just create next, and now you can see that there's a thing like, okay, language, sorry, what platform do you want to support? Do you want to go back to .NET 5? You can do that. You want to enable Docker. So if you imagine you are making this application cloud native and taking it to Kubernetes or any other platforms where you are running containers, you can enable that. And once you enable that, you can also choose what operating system do you want to use, Linux or Windows, right? And there's another thing called controllers. So predominantly, when you create web API projects, ASP.NET has this nice way of kind of doing the routing based on controllers. So you'll have a controller class, and then you can have methods. And as long as you put the attribute on the method saying, okay, this method is going to listen to HTTP GET, then that method will automatically have details for getting the HTTP context and all the data that comes in the HTTP request, right? So that's a really nice way of doing it. It's a very opinionated though. Yeah, tell me, you were asking something.
So it's basically the API building, the routing of APIs, you mean to say?
Correct. Yeah, right. Routing, and it just makes it easy for routing, unit testing, and things like that.
Yep.
Now with .NET 6, now we have this minimal API. So it says unchecked to use minimal API. So we want you to use controllers because you may start small applications, but eventually your code can get really, really complex. And so that you maintain it really well, you can start with controllers if you want to. But hey, you know what? I'm just building a simple API and I don't need controllers. It's okay. You can just uncheck it, and then welcome to this new world of the minimal APIs. Where so now it's asking me, okay, it needs to save a file. So I'll just call this as samosa chai maybe, and so now I have this console application, I have this web API. Now you can see that there is program.cs. And if I go to the program.cs, you were asking me about the implicit usings in other platforms. You see that there is no usings here because that is now implicit. And here, what you see is we have this web application.create. And then whatever you see as a get method, uh, see this, there's a method called map get, which automatically says, okay, this is the get method that you want to use, and the URL that you're going to listen on is the weather forecast, and that URL is going to handle this thing. What it is doing is it's just having it's having a variable called summaries, and then it is doing a random on this summaries, and then sending across the weather forecast data, right? So it's a very, very simple one. And then when you do app.run, it all runs. So what we'll do is to understand this better. Let's run this. Let's put this on the start project and see what exactly is it, right? So let's do a samosa chai, run this application. So if you see here, so this is the samosa web API. You see that weather forecast that we used map get for. So now you have that method here, and by default, even the Swagger comes with it. So it's all baked into your application. So now what we'll do is we can go ahead and create. Let me close all other than this one. So yeah. So now let's let's build $1 million business out of this, right? We will sell some samosa recipes. So Vivek and I, we have this plan to become the unicorns next when we quit Microsoft. So so we're going to create this web API that is going to sell recipes online. So what I want is, okay, I want someone to reach out to my API and ask for recipes. So I can say, okay, I want, you can actually do this. So first thing is the path that you're listening. The second one is the lambda that will respond to it. Yeah, you had some.
I just want to confirm that we are just giving you recipes, not samosas. You know.
Yeah, we're not doing samosas yet. So so it's an API. So API will only just do its thing and charge you for it, right? So so I'll say, okay, well, I want to listen to something called as samosas, and then here I can say return welcome to samosas, right? Now if I just go and return this thing, you can see that this is all I needed to create an endpoint. So if I do a samosa web API and click on that, it'll go and you can see that automatically it just created. And if you go and click try it out, it just said welcome to samosa, which is a string that it created. Okay, I was trying to zoom in, it just crashed. Anyway, so now let's do one thing. Let's make it even better. We will sell some recipes. So I want to have some sort of place to store my recipes, right? So I need a model object. So I can go and say I want to create a record type of recip, right? And the good thing about the record type is you can it gives you it gives you a type which is reference type, but it gives you immutable properties as well. So that means you cannot change things once it is created, right? So now I can say, okay, let's say I want recipe, so I will have an int of ID that I will be working with. I will have probably name of the recipe, and then I will also have string, probably the recipe itself, which is recipe text, or whatever you want to call this, right? So these are properties that are accessed outside. So I'll just put it this way. So I just created a record type. So in C# 10, by default, this is a class type. So if you want to be explicit, you can also say record is of type class, or we also have struct type also. If you want to use value types, you can use struct as well. These are C# 10 related features. But for now, I'm okay with the recipe. This is what I needed, which is fine. So now I can go and say, okay, I want to create a new recipe and return that. My first object is 1. The second object is this is, let's say, grandma's kitchen um, recipe or something like that, and then I'll also put the text of like boiled potatoes and all the text that I need to write. I hope I'm spelling all these things right. It'll be pretty bad if my daughter watches the show and I type something wrong with spelling.
You should be adding spell check as well.
In VS, yeah, I think that's a good feature. We should ask them. All right, so this is the recipe. Now, if I just run it, it's actually going to return the recipe. But let's make it even more better is by adding multiple recipes. So now we are not actually using samosas, we are actually getting recipes, right? So now I can just go and say, okay, the the endpoint that I want is under samosas. You want to get into recipes because that's the right way to kind of like put it in English, right? So to make this better, what I will do is we will also create maybe a simple array, and I like this IntelliSense. Hmm. So now I can just add more recipes. So by the way, in reality, in production, you will probably use something like a entity framework to store the data and then validate the data and all those things. But this is all just simple ones that I'm just showing Vivek how to do things. And Vivek doesn't understand complex things, I guess, right? Vivek?
Yeah, I want to understand it through simple stuff.
Yeah. And all right, so that's Grandma's Kitchen. And do you have any specific recipe that you want to sell on this platform? So Vivek's chef, Vivek's special recipe or whatever, right? So will you boil potatoes or no? Boil potatoes and add some Indian masala, maybe. Right? I'm just giving some random stuff. So now instead of returning my single DTO, I will just say that okay, now return this recipe. So this now when you do when I run it, let's say, what it is going to do is, as you guessed, it is going to take this value and return that. Now, if you notice, one thing is it's a JSON data that came up, right? So when we sent a string back, it was a string, like it just was a string. But when you send an object back, it automatically decided to send you JSON because that's what it assumes that you want to do, right? And that's the right way to do it as well. So it is all automatic, it's all baked in to you. And now let's say if I want to kind of like have another one, like if someone reaches out with that particular recipe ID, then I want to return that ID, right? So sorry for that value. So I see I totally didn't do this. So I have two recipes, and if someone reaches out with an ID, let's return that, right? So I'll say, okay, I want to take ID as the parameter there, and like this. And now that I am taking the parameter request, now in the delegate, you can actually say, okay, I want to receive that ID in this variable, right? So that will take in, and now you can actually validate this. Okay, I want to return this ID. So how are we going to do that? So we need to write some if else statements, right? So I'll say if before I do that, let's find it if that ID is valid or not, right? So if I'll say, okay, get me the recipe from my array, which is a recipe. So to find it, I'll use a helper function, say find in from recipes. Look at this IntelliSense out there. Wow, it knows what exactly I'm trying to do. So I just say tab, and it just goes and completes it. This is basically IntelliCode. So it just looks at all those ML and then looks say, okay, well, this is exactly what you want to trying to do. So just pull it up for me. Okay, so basically it's just trying to find the ID from that thing, right? So now this could also be null. So I need to do a null check. So I say if recipe not equal to null, I want to return recipe, right? So if I now run this, let's say there's a build error. What's that error? So I need to, yeah, it doesn't. It says all code part doesn't, respond. Like it doesn't say what else to do if there is no there is there is no recipe, right? You need to return something, right? So so to make this better, I think the right way to do that is that to being more explicit. Now I can say that this recipe is basically, say, results dot, again, helper functions to help you with it. Say results dot JSON, and return this recipe, right? Now in the else, I can say that return results dot not found. So that's a nice way to do it, because what it does is, I'll show you what this thing does. So let's run this. So now it's going to try to find the ID, and it has a recipe ID over here. And when I click get, and you see that ID as a value that you can take it. So now I can say that, okay, let me give me one, and now it goes and pulls out the grandma's kitchen, put me on 2, execute, and you can see that chef Vivek, which I spelled it totally wrong, and I don't see Vivek here anymore. I assume some kind of technical issues, but we will continue and keep asking your questions. I'll watch for your chats over here. So, okay, so so yeah, I see Nitin asking me, shouldn't be recipe samosa? Yeah, it could be whatever you want to. I was just keeping it simple. That's probably the right way, maybe, right? So maybe I for samosas, I don't want recipes. I want samosas to be ordered. Then I probably will have something else, right? So now let's say if I want to do integer 3 and say execute, and you can see that it hit it, but it does not have that value. So it says that response status is 404. So it automatically also gives the um, HTTP status. Come on, to go back with it, right? Not just returning an empty one. So that's a nice way to do this, and we have these recipes and things like that sorted out. Okay, so do you guys have any more questions? Feel free to ask, and I'll take those things in, because I don't see Vivek here, and I'm not an admin on this show, so you will have to bear with me. If there is something that I'm not able to do here, then I think we'll have to continue to do, because I can't move few things, like I can't change the screen and things like that, because he is the admin over here. So when he comes back, I should be able to do those things. Okay, so so now that we have this done, let's go and see how we will write something like this in production, right? So if you were to do something in production, so what we did is we built something called as .NET Podcast app, and this was done for .NET Conf, which is really nice app to look at. It's beautiful. It has some really nice APIs behind the scenes. And what it does is it's just a podcast which is dedicated to all the .NET developers. It just goes in and pulls in data for different podcasts that you will listen to, and then it'll start playing this podcast, right? Let me show you this podcast. So this is the app that we built for the .NET Conf, which we will, we'll take it out, and then we'll try to go through this today here. Now, if I go into the .NET podcast here, this is where I have hosted it on my on my site on Azure. So I'll show you how that was done as well. So this is a simple web page which is built using ASP.NET Core Razor Pages, and it also is dynamic, because this content is pulled, the featured content is pulled as a dynamic page, and it also has the other platforms like mobile platforms and things like that. Right. So now if I click sign in, as of now, it's not authenticated. So you can actually go in and sign in, and there are all the podcasts that is actually listed here, right? So there are a few podcasts listed here. And if I go into the subscriptions, I don't have any subscriptions. So I can go and subscribe to this. So by the way, all these things that you're seeing here under the sign in page, they're all built using Blazor. So it's a modern web UI framework for building really awesome applications, right? UI web application. So again, more about the Blaze a little later, and we also have a dedicated session coming up later. I think in the first week of December or something. So stay tuned for that. Jeff Fritz is going to be here. He's going to talk through all the Blazor awesomeness that came in .NET 6. For now, let's stick to this one. So if I want to subscribe to this, I can go ahead and click subscribe for each of it. Let's say I subscribe to 2 of it. If I go to subscription, now I have these subscriptions out here, right? So now we can go to the Maui podcast, one of the favorite podcasts out there, and I can start listening. So as I click on listen, it's now playing all the podcasts directly. You can see that it's nice music, and then these controls are all rendered on the web layer, and I can say listen later. Once I put the listen later, it goes into listen later list. And there's also one more thing that we did, is something called as listen together. And to show you that, I was expecting Vivek to be around to show you this, but instead what we can do is I'll bring in other platforms, right, to see how this is all working together. So let's go to the listen together mode. So which is nothing but sometimes you just don't want to watch the show alone because of all the COVID reasons and things like that. We are all apart from each other. So if you want to listen together and react and respond to things, I can go ahead and create a room. So I can just say this is my room, so Nish's podcasting room or something like that, and then say open room. So now I have this room. I can ask people to join this room, sending them this invite code. So because I will be logged into the same user, I should be able to access this room. So I will open this time an Android application, which I had pre-installed. So if you see this here, which I'll put it this side, and then you have the podcast app here. So you can see that this is the Android application. So this is the web application, and this is the Android application. So now if I go into, so this has like everything that you would expect in an Android app. It's native. Everything that you see here, it uses the same color theme and everything that is needed for your branding, but yet they're all native applications. The interesting thing about the together mode is that, because together mode was built as a last minute, what we did is, instead of building together mode completely into a native application, what we did is we used the Blazor's hybrid Maui app, which is like you can take the Blazor component and then run directly on the Android app as well. So it's more like having a web view and then have the web components shown there. But at the same time, it's not totally a web because it's not running JavaScript. It has all the C# running, but those C# actually are natively run by the .NET runtime. They are not run inside the browser. So that way, it is high performant and really. Sometimes I look at it and think like, how are we able to do this kind of things? It's really, really amazing and magic to see that happen, right? So now that you can see that there is an available room that I can go into, and I can here I can provide what my name is. Probably I was expecting Vivek, so I'll say this is Vivek joining in, and immediately I know that there is a notification that hey, there is Vivek in my room, and now we can play this and in both the things. And while we do that, we can also send emojis and reactions and things like that, right? So, and you can see how they're all working together. And the reason for that is they're behind the scenes, there is SignalR, and SignalR is keeping real-time communication between these apps, and which is really, really cool. And there are some really nice things like the dark mode if I want to, and it's all the same thing over here as well, right? So now what we can do is let's go look at. You're back. Are you there, Vivek?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What happened? Okay, he's out again.
There
What
is
happened?
something happened to my laptop. It just froze. I don't know
Oh
what's
no.
wrong.
Okay. You're safe, right?
Yeah, I'm safe.
Okay. That's what matters. That's what matters. Okay. Did you see this demo, or you didn't see anything that we did right now, right?
No, something StreamYard was saying my device is not able to connect to this. I don't know why. What's that?
Okay. All right. So anyway, I was showing this application which was built using Blazor on the web, and there's an Android platform where Android is built, and there's also a Windows applications. If only my Windows button just works. Why is this not working? Let's see if I can bring up the.
So you're done with your podcast app design? I mean, podcast app.
No. We're going to go into the backend, which is what you wanted to understand and hear. So I kept that, and and we were just discussing about the what the podcast app is and how this is all done, right? So there's this really nice discover pay subscriptions and all those things. This is now, if you look at these tabs and the things that are on the left side, so they are all baked for particular platform, and everything is written in .NET. All right, so okay, let's now go ahead and look at how this whole thing really works, right? So if I open my Visual Studio and let me open the podcast API. So this is my podcast API, and you can see that, oh yeah, there are some usings here, right? Now I can take these usings and I can remove this here. So this is where I was talking about global usings. I can remove these usings, go to the Solution Explorer, and there is a global usings file. Put this in here, and I can save this. But just using putting in a global using file does not solve the problem. So you also need to add this word called global. It's a keyword that you need to add it, and now it'll all compile well, and then you don't need to heap the names. So now even
I'm
that
not sure
namespace
you
is
were able
available.
to answer the question of Anup. I mean, I think this was the
I might have
exact
missed
question which
few
he
things
had.
because
Yeah, I missed out. So
uh,
this is the exact question he had, whether it can be used as a global variable. And yes, Anup, here is an example which Nish is showing up.
yeah, yeah. The other ones were they're the the path related ones. Please share the GitHub repo of this podcast app. Yes, that's the thing that we are working on it now this week, hopefully, or the next week. We should be able to get that thing to you, because it has a few keys that we have used in the for the demos. So we want to get rid of and give you a clean file that you can just work with, right? So we are working on that. Okay, so this is the podcast apps API, which basically, so let's run this. And instead of running this locally and just clogging my machine, what I'll do is I'll go into the Azure where I've deployed this, and let me just find the path for you. Yeah, there it is. So so this is my API path. So this is where this is deployed into that. So it has all the thing, categories, episodes, feeds, shows, and things like that. And where I have deployed this is in a newest thing that we announced in Ignite, which is the Azure Container Apps. So we made this happen. We took this APIs and the background workers and other things that it is involved in. We deployed this directly in Azure Container Apps. And Azure Container Apps is a great platform if you are a person who doesn't want to get into Kubernetes and other kind of things. You really want to be only focused on your application and the and not really worry too much about the infrastructure. You can use something like Azure Container Apps, and also there are nice things that it does. Like, for example, if there is an event outside of it, like using Kida, it looks at, let's say, messaging. So if there is a messaging which has grown up and you want to work on that messaging, you can actually set rules that, hey, if I find more than 20 messages in certain queue, I want to, increase the scale of it. So these are automatically done using configuration. And the good thing about this is you can also scale to zero. That means you can save cost by not running it all when we don't want to run it, right? So this API currently is running behind the scenes. So if I'll open this, my podcast resource group, you can see that there are three container apps that I have deployed. One is the podcast API CA, which is the one which you are seeing right now, which is the API. And then there are two workers. So what is a worker? So we will go look at these things now. To understand this better, let me also pull up the architecture of this podcast app, right? So we have this container app here. So we have the container environment, and we have all these nice, you can call it as microservices that are working, in parallel. And then it is actually storing all the things into Azure Storage and feed queues and things like that. We will look at that also. In all the amazingness of the listen together that you saw, it is actually working into the SignalR hub, right? And all the web UI you saw, it's all working in Blazor, right? And it is hosted as a Linux app service. And then we have some few SQL databases that will store data for performing these operations. And we also have this .NET MAUI app, which is how you write cross-platform application on iOS, Android, and Windows, right? All right, so now let's look at the code. So I'll go into the podcast services. So if you look at this code, you see how these are the endpoints, which is actually, if you query these and it gives you care categories, episodes, and things like that. You see there's an endpoint called map post, and that is something which actually receives some feeds. So imagine if this is a real podcast app and you want to receive submissions from everyone about the new .NET podcast. Maybe you're starting a new .NET podcast, right? And you want to submit this to the service, right? And then we want to provide an API for you to send that message in. So we now have this API called feeds, and you can actually send in the detail it is asking for, and it will come into this method. Instead of we directly taking and putting it into the database, what we thought to do best is to send this to a messaging queue, because we want to receive it, fire and forget, but we also want to process this. There could be spams when we receive this, so we want to make sure that spams are taken out and only valid ones are remaining there, right? So we brought in something called as messaging. So you actually take this method and then post it into the messaging queue, which is what we're going to do right now. Okay, so once we do that, there should be somebody who has to go and find out and then start working on these messages, right? So that's where the podcast worker comes into picture. So in .NET, you have something called as worker. So this is an injection worker. If you go into the program.cs, you can see this is also a minimal approach to writing workers. And you say add hosted service a worker. So worker will have this lifecycle methods like execute async and what you want to do when you're ending it and things like that, right? So in this message is when it'll go and look at all the feed that has come in, which is available in the queue. So this is a separate microservice. It has no dependency on the other ones, right? So it is actually working behind the scenes, scraping the messaging endpoint and trying to process it, right? So now if you look at the let's see, if you look at this thing, it's actually going in and getting the data, retrieved messages, and it's doing really let's see, ingestion handler. Let me show you. Okay, what it's doing is we're saying, okay, accepted topics are if the podcast has these things like C#, F#, ASP.NET, MAUI, Xamarin, all these things, we will auto update it because we think, okay, that's the right podcast to listen to for the .NET podcast, right? We can do even better than this. We can have this worker to have a spam filtration ML algorithm in it, and then do really lot of things that can actually filter real spams or notify certain users to validate this and approve and all those things, right? For now, this is just simple trying to filter those conditions out here. So this is a worker, right? Now this worker is actually deployed into the Kubernetes Azure Container Apps. Now remember I
So
told you
Nish,
about how. Mhm.
just one question there. So when you said we can use ML there, so it's
Mhm.
because it's unified platform. It's only one installation of .NET 6, but we can use all the rest of the things which is there and make use of it here. It's directly in the same code, right?
Y- yeah. So what I meant to say that was like what worker does is worker is nothing but it's like a service that runs behind the scenes, right? So anything that you want to do behind the scenes, like a background services and things like that. So it could be anything. I was suggesting that we could have an entire ML related ones to filter these feeds that is coming in instead of uh, you know instead of running just to check for whether it has keys like .NET or C# or F#. We can do an ML thing there instead of that. So I was suggesting that there are different approaches to this problem. Anyway, for this demo, we just kept that way, right? And then what we did is we went and deployed this in the Azure Container Apps. And the beauty of Azure Container Apps is that, so let me show you the deployment part a little bit. So this is an Azure bicep file, which has those deployment scripts out here. So here, let me just search for podcast ingestion. Uh, Podcast. So I think it's here. If you look at this is running on the Kubernetes environment. So this is how you configure thing, and we are saying so we want to listen to a feed queue, and based on that feed queue, let's go down here. Based on the feed queue, based on the length, we can set max replicas and min replicas, right? So this background worker that is running behind the scenes doesn't need to be running if there are nothing in the queue. So if nobody has posted many messages, it doesn't need to be running. So these kind of instruction sets can be given right inside these rules, and which is great. So let's go and look at it. How does it all work, right? So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a few things like so. So what it is doing is going and querying. So you can see that there is a podcast API that's running. The replicas, you see that replicas is 1, which makes sense. But the ingestion one is 0 because we don't have anything in the feed at all, right? So I can prove it to you by going into my feed queue and see that this is my messaging platform, which doesn't have any messages right now. So what we're going to do is we will go and spam this, right? So let's go and spam this. For that, we have, okay, will run this thing, which is actually taking some JSON data and dumping in all the values into this messaging queue, right? Now, if you go back and just refresh here, you see all the messages has come in, right? So all the messages, and mostly they're all junk. But you can see that, as we do it here, there's replica is still 1. This is 0. So it takes a bit of time for it to kind of like work on. And after a while, you'll start seeing these replicas going up automatically without having any sort of things that is configured. Okay,
So
I want to
you
make
have
sure.
configured anything in the backend through the HTTP scaling, or is it Keda which you have enabled?
Um, yeah, just 1 second. It just gets stuck, I think. Oh, yeah, it's just yeah.
It's
So now
just
you can
two
see that
now.
replicas. Yeah, now it sees see that it automatically scales, right? 3, and then this replica is this one is the ingestion worker, which is actually also got scale automatically. And now if you go in here and refresh, it will probably be removing some messages right now. So the worker is working behind the scenes and getting all these things removed. So you see that when I refresh it, so the worker has kicked in and then it's now done, right? So you can see, and when it is completely done, sorry about this, when it is completely done, it will go back to scale to 0, but that happens a little after some time, just to once it cools down. So what I was trying to tell you is, if you look at this bicep file, all that we're doing is we are actually configuring this correctly. Like, we're just setting this thing. And this is just a .NET app. And all that I have in this app is just I added a Docker file because I want to containerize it, pushed it to a Azure container registry. And in the deployment, I say, okay, run this worker in a container environment. And this is my scaling rule. And the beauty of this Azure Container Apps is that even I can enable Dapper in this space if I want to do service-to-service communications and things like that. They all are it's all configurable here, and the it was really easy to set things up. Like if you go into my GitHub, so there's this official fork that is actually used by the all the .NET Conf demoers. They were using it on the Azure, but I wanted to set it up in mine. So all I had to do was, have some settings created in my GitHub secrets. And this is the DevOps setting. And in DevOps, I say, okay, this is my deployment script. I say, this is my bicep for deploying to podcast API. It just goes and deploys it to that one. It was magical because I did not have anything set up. I had to create a resource group for it and provide what names I want for each of it, and then it'll automatically go and deploy this and configure this. So now it's in such a way that if I go and change any particular code and change it, it'll go and deploy to my resource group without any hassles. And when we get this out to you, we want to make sure it is available in the same way. So you just have to set up a few things, and it'll automatically deploy everything onto Azure, right? So I
So there
think
was
Vivek, I think we are.
a question. Yeah, a
Yeah,
couple of questions are there, but what did I miss? In a
pull it.
nutshell, I was off for almost like a 15 minutes.
Hmm. So what did you miss? So
Yeah.
so you missed a lot actually. So I was explaining how so I think you were there at this point where we were talking about the
Podcast.
simple API that I created just to show you how we can write
Yep.
APIs and things like that, right? Then I think I showed the podcast app, like what is the architecture of podcast app and how they are all done and baked in. And then I showed this one. This I wanted to show because this is a piece that I also worked with my good friends in Spain, and we both put together this demo. So this had this amazing stuff, which is all about not worrying about Kubernetes, right? So if you look at Azure Container Apps,
When
it's
I
running
see
on.
the bicep code,
Mhm.
there,
Yeah,
so
let's bring it
it's
up.
the container apps. The container apps is scaling
Yeah,
when there is a lot of messages which is going into the queue. Am I
exactly.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at the other
That is
traffic scaling,
configurable with, yeah, that is
yeah,
configurable via biceps. Okay.
or JSON ARM deployment, you can configure however you want. You can use CLI to configure it. You can do however you want. But yeah, it's really amazing how so Kubernetes has always been tricky. I'm sure we are doing some sessions on Kubernetes in the coming weeks, but I think it's always tricky in terms of the learning curve that is involved in for people as a developer to understand so much of infrastructure, right? So a container apps really helps in saying, okay, what do you want, right? I want to run the worker in 50 scale if I have this, right? It could be anything. It could be messaging queues, or basically it uses Kida under the hood. So whatever Kida supports, it should be supporting. And then you can look at it and then decide how you want to scale. And the most exciting part for me about the container apps is that it can scale to zero, which means I can save money. I don't have to worry about my Kubernetes environment and things like that, right? So so if you look at the podcast API, the API thing that was installed, that has minimum replica set as 1, because we just want to make sure that API is available to anybody who is requesting at that time. But it also has a scaling rule. When there is huge number of requests coming in, scale up. That's when you saw that 3 requests came up, because we were injecting a lot of code into it. So it just came up and automatically gave a load balancer, and it was receiving requests depending on the load. So we can also go and set the traffic rules in that. Again, it is also configurable here, right? And then that's simpler. So okay, this is, let's see where exactly.
So Nish, do you want to take some questions, because there are a
Yeah,
bunch
let's
of
take
questions?
questions. I think we might have a short over time. We
Yeah.
have more things to show you about Blazor and Maui and things like that. But I think Vivek, I think you can pull in those details about when we have those detailed sessions, so that we don't have to really, And also hot reload. This that was there in my mind to show hot reload today, but all the technical issues. So
No
we
worries.
can we can keep it for
So
another day. Yeah.
let me take the questions from Sohail.
Yeah.
There is one question. Maybe this part I missed. This is in the the one which you are building recipe class, where how we can add attributes is was the question. Maybe that is when you were building it. The questions came in.
Yeah, I think it depends on what attributes you're adding. And I think what I can do is, there's an interesting blog post from David Fowler. I'll send that to you in the chat link. Take a look at that, and that'll show you what all the things that you can do with minimal APIs, and what all things that you can't do. For example, with attributes and versioning, it's quite tricky, and it's not supported right now. So that's not available to you right now. So you can actually take a look at that blog, and then you can see what all the things that is supported right now.
Perfect. So there is one question from Anup again. So this is about
Yeah.
Azure Container Apps with other Azure container options.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. I think that's the reason why it needs a detailed explanation to it. Is we have a lot of container offerings, right? For example, if you are just simply looking at I just want a container to run behind the scenes at somewhere, and you're only looking at that, then I think there are Azure container instances and things like that, right? If you're looking at a web page that I want to be hosting it in a container, then Azure Web App for Containers there, right? When you look at Azure Container Apps, the way to look at it is it gives you a Kubernetes environment where you can have multiple microservices working with each other, and it enables Dapper too. So you can have service to service communication. You can have sidecar approaches. You can have cross-cutting functions taken care of. All those things that you will look for some really large application with multiple containers, that will come baked in for you as configuration things. And also the interesting thing about this is it can scale to zero as well, right? Some of the times when you do not want to use it, based on those decisions, you can actually go down to not paying it. So the way to look at it is to think of it like a serverless container platform as Azure Container Apps, and the others are like, more with respect to, you have a container app, I want to do this, right? Then you'll go with that kind of approach. I just want a web page here with container apps. Okay, Azure Web for containers, just drop in there, right? So yeah, so that's a way to look at it. What are the other
Yes,
questions?
and yeah, there are bunch of questions actually.
Mhm.
So there is a question from Nitin, basically with
Yeah.
respect to LTS. So if you can take that as well.
Yeah, so I think if you are on 3.1, moving to 6.0 would be the right thing to do, because the next available version as a LTS is the 6.0. So it's going to be an easy approach to this. It's I think it also depends on how you programmed it. Like if there are APIs that are breaking, that could probably be looked in a different way. But you can look at this project called eShop and Containers that we have been maintaining it from 3.1 onward. So we moved from 3.1 to 5.0 and then 5.0 to 6.0. 5.0 to 6.0 was fairly easier to upgrade because a lot of things did not change a lot other than being minimal APIs and things like that. We wanted to show how to do minimal APIs with large applications, so we took more effort to make sure it all works. But we could just simply go and say net 6.0 and it all compiles well, just like how I showed you the console application row. So yes, if you are in 3.1, you should upgrade to 6.0 for sure.
So there is question from Vishwas as well. So this is related to the performance of the app, how we can look at the performance of the app.
Yeah, there are various ways to do that. The profilings and things like that. I think I'll do one thing. I'll send those list of tools that you can use to measure performances and things like that. And performances, it depends on different aspects too.
I'm
So
not sure whether the question is about, you know, seeing the performance of the container apps which we deployed, or is it the standalone
I think it's a
app? I
standalone
think
app
it's
performance. I think we talked about
standalone.
performance. It's a high performant applications and things like that. So the way TechPempower does is like we have, I think they execute a bunch of steps to identify performances. So you can use telemetries to get performance data and things like that. You can use profilers. There are many tools out there, which I think I can share it to you on the chat a little later.
Yep. And if it is related to cloud, like if you're pushing something in the cloud, you can definitely use Azure monitoring services, which is there.
Yeah.
So you can obviously
Mhm.
make use of application insights and other things to measure the performance. There is one question from Anoop on how we can customize ML options, which is using for IntelliCode. Intelligent coding, basically, is talking about.
Can we customize ML option, which is I don't know the answer to that actually. I need to check with someone. Let me check with the team with the VS, and I'll let you know that. Um, I think it does learn from how you write code too, but can you customize it? I'm not very sure actually. We can check, and maybe in the next, if we don't get to answer it in today, in the next stream, just ask us this question again. Probably I'll have that answer for you.
Perfect. So yeah, I mean, how does it change from application, debugging and other things, from the .NET 6? I mean, does it really changes if you're building something?
Diagnosis? No, I don't think so. I mean, changing from what actually? No, I think diagnosis. The way you would look at it is, it's the approach is going to be same if you're coming from .NET 5 and things like that. It also depends on where you're coming from. Which was I'm not very sure on that question. That if you have a specific scenario that you think that you feel that you're not able to diagnose on certain things, just drop me an email and I'll connect you with the right people to help you with that one. So my email is nish@microsoft.com.
Yeah, which was just confirm that what performance he was talking about. So
With respect to
the
ML
previous
workloads
question,
for
yeah, the previous question he had with respect to performance of the app. So he was
yeah.
more specific on the ML workload. How
Yeah,
does
so I'm going to interpret this question that as I understand this. So ML workloads, when I was giving you an example of how to do ML workloads, There are multiple ways to do it. You can actually query an Azure service for machine learning and then get a data. You can run the ML models yourself using ML.net. So ML.net is an offering on machine learning. So once that model is created, then it's just a comparison on the vectors. So it will give you a probability value whether it is a spam or it is not spam. We find this is a 70% spam or an 80% spam, right? So the actual analysis would not take anything on the performance, but when you want to train that model, it would probably need some kind of like a worker or something like that behind the scenes to do the training model. And the training model is generally a repetitive process. So you go from like take the 50% data, train it, test with the next 20% data, then add another few percentage to test it. So you go with certain formalities, and so it's always a repetitive thing. So I don't think performance will ever looked at in that space at all. But your question, the way I interpreted it, is at the time when you have to detect spam or not, will that impact performance? The answer is mostly no, because it's only do a vector comparison to understand what is the probability on this being a spam, right? So most of these spam engines today do this, right? Your emails is for that example, right? It checks a spam almost immediately and tell you what it looks at the characteristics and say, okay, this looks like a spam, versus is it a spam or not? Yeah.
Yes, I'm done with the questions. So we still got some minutes
Yeah.
to, if you want to talk about uh, the Maui, the
Yeah.
Blazor, we can spend some 5 minutes. While, by the
Yeah.
way, people who have joined in, we do have a deep dive sessions of these in upcoming Samosa and Chai episodes, which is next week with James, who's going to talk about Maui, and also we have Jeff coming in, who's going to lead the discussion with respect to Blazor app. So
Mm.
do join in for that as well. But we do have 5 minutes, so Nish, we can spend some time there.
Yeah, so I actually deliberately try to avoid too much on Blazor and Maui because I want to spend more time on this web API and things like that, Azure containers, because I was naturally excited about this. The reason for that is we have really star speakers coming in for the next week. Maui, James, who's also my manager, he's going to go through all the Maui updates. And it's really mind blowing to see. I mean, I worked for Xamarin for a really, really long time, and I've not been doing Android and iOS apps for a long time now. But when I looked at the Maui updates and things like that, it is really, really exciting to see how far we have come in terms of technology, in terms of the stack that we have, in terms of productivity tools that is available in Visual Studio. It is really amazing. And don't forget to join in for the next session where we'll deep dive into. There are three ways to look at, kind of like like three kind of developers we trying to target with this thing. Like a web developer who wants to write a mobile app, right? So what does the technology or tooling that he has? He has web, HTML, JavaScript. Well, with Blazor, you don't need JavaScript, right? You being a C# developer, you can run C#. It just works magically well, right? So can that technology be taken to the mobile? So when we took to that mobile, it was very easy to do that because we already had this WebAssembly thing running inside the browser, which means it's not even in the backend. It's connected in your using WebAssembly. Basically, it's on the browser. So it was having a .NET engine running inside the browser to give you all those magic. So when we were taking that Razor pages of Blazor to the mobile platforms, we were able to reuse the .NET's native running engine, which was running the other Xamarin Maui controls and things. So we were able to reuse that. And so we were only having this thin layer to just display the UI. So that way, when a web developer comes to the mobile, he gets the same experience. He writes the same code, yet he has all the APIs available to him to access. So if you're on a Windows app, you want to connect to Notepad or Registry, you can do that. If you're on Android, you want to work with an SMS manager, you want to work with a Bluetooth, you can do that because you still have the connectivity available to you because you're not writing inside the browser. Because if you are doing in browser, then you have this browser sandbox and you can't do it outside of it. But since it's not running inside the browser, you have all these native capabilities as well. So as a web developer, you are able to write native apps as well. As a native apps, you are able to reuse those Razor components in the web. And with Blazor, if you're someone like me who don't want to write JavaScript, you can technically decide between writing a Blazor server or a Blazor WebAssembly. WebAssembly is completely a thick client on the browser, maybe writing games and things like that, which is intensive. You can use the client systems for it. If you want to use the server, you can, the part of the code goes and compiles in the server, and then it just injects C sharp, sorry, HTML and CSS as you do it. So it's so magical. It's like the Ajax days where, a little things that happens quickly. Were you there when you first wrote your Ajax code? I mean,
Yeah,
did you do that?
yeah,
Like a transformation
yes, I have
from
done.
the web app?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So
Yeah,
it's like, you're seeing something getting updated,
exactly, almost instantly, right?
only when you change something here and it's getting updated there.
Yeah, so that was really magical. So basically, yeah, Blazor is an approach for if you're building web spa applications. So you have these options, and you can stick to C sharp. That's the most important aspect, and you don't have to shift gears and go learn JavaScript. Every other day there's a new framework that's coming out, Angular, React, and so many other things. You really don't have to worry about all those things and stick to those languages that you know. And if you're coming from a web forms develop as a web forms application developer, the programming model looks similar, but just the technology stack is completely different. So yeah, it's really magical to see how far we have come and how much of awesomeness that's baked in right now that you can use for
So,
building applications.
to summarize, right? To
Mhm.
summarize the complete .NET Conf keynote, which is there, what I am taking away is, if I have to build a startup, this is the right set of tools available to me,
Mhm.
right? There is platform, unified platform. There is performance. There is integration with the cloud. There is, Visual Studio integrations with GitHub Actions also being integrated. There are so many things which has come in, and obviously with the performance, benchmarking which you showed me,
Yeah.
it's like you have everything. You have ML, you have IoT, you have all the things which you can build. So
Mhm.
it's looking like a tool or a framework for me to just get started. If I have to build a startup, or just move my stuff which is already there on different things, from a startup perspective to the .NET 6, right? So I'm just looking
Yeah.
at that, because of also the simplified minimal APIs, the simplified development which was launched as well, is a simplifying the way we build the APIs and other things, right? So it's interesting. That's the takeaway I'm taking from the
Yeah.
keynote which happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should take this selling samosa recipes online, like chai recipes and samosa recipes online, and we can literally build an entire empire out of it with the knowledge that we have.
Yeah,
Because
bring
it's the,
bring in
Mhm.
Point everyone into this
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so it's jokes apart. I mean, it's really a nice platform, and it's really it's getting better every day, and we're just getting started. So it's really nice to see how far things have come.
2 more minutes. I can let people to ask questions if there is any questions.
Yeah,
I
we're
can
just
wait for
hanging
two
out.
more
So
minutes.
if you want to come
Yeah.
back and look at these questions later, you can do that too. Um, okay. Also, let us know in the chat. What do you think? I mean, how do you? So we want to keep this informal and chat during this chai time. So we want to keep it more like a podcasting, like we chat about things and not make it really formal. Do you like these kind of sessions? Do you like to hang out with us? Do you want to come on the show? Let us know in those comments, and then we can steer things accordingly as well.
Yeah. To come on the show, you need to get us samosas. By the way, I mean, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I did get my chai though. Did you?
Yeah, I did. I got my chai.
You
Where do
have
you
chai
think I
in the
went?
office? Wow, nice. Yeah,
Yeah, we have
yeah,
coffee, chai, both there. I think it's snack time as well. I think we can go and get some snacks. By the way, so there is a
nice
question. Okay, Vishwa says he wants this kind of sessions
session.
only.
Oh, thank you, Vishwas. That really helps us kind of like to assert that what we're doing is doing the right thing. Okay.
Cool.
Um,
Um, so thanks, Nish, for walking us through. I know I missed a couple of things. I don't know. what
Oh, I'm
happened
going
to my
to give
system.
you private tuitions for it.
Yeah, that's something, I can send you some samosas for that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for walking
so
us through. I think this was amazing session as well. Yes, Nish, you had something.
no, I just was reminding that people should join the next one, the Maui one. It's going to be really really exciting with James on, and there's going to be a show with Jeff Fritz as well. So where we are going to be the hosts and we're going to ask more questions. So prepare your questions. So we don't usually get these awesome folks this side of the world. So they're going to wake up for us in the early in the morning. So James is going to, it's going to be 4:30 in the night or some 4:30 in the morning for him. So it's going to be really nice to have if we were doing it live, it would be much better. But I think we are getting it close to what it is. But
And and
yeah.
and by the way, I'm just posting the LinkedIn group. You can join our LinkedIn group. I'm just posting the LinkedIn group link there. Please join. Uh, by the way, Nish has compiled some of the Microsoft Learn modules, which is, which I have combined it into a collection and building it out as a, cloud skill challenge for you, where you can learn all of these things. You can go back and try out all these code and different things, specifically from .NET 6. So I will be posting about the cloud skill challenge, which we have launched in that LinkedIn group. So please go back and join this LinkedIn group, and you might get this cloud skill challenge in next half an hour.
All right.
Hey,
That's it
thanks,
from my
Nish.
side too, Vivek. Thank
See
you. Thanks,
you.
Vivek.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
See you
Take care.
next week.
See you.
See you all.